Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Mel from MelDidItHerself, and I'm a social service worker turned furniture refinisher, DIYer, small business owner, and content creator. I've learned everything I know about these industries thanks to people who shared their knowledge on the internet. So I'm paying it forward by bringing you my tips, lessons learned, and sharing my journey in this space with you. So thank you so much for being here, being curious, and being a lifelong learner like me. Let's hop into it. What is up, my friends and fellow busybees? I hope you're doing well, and if you're in Canada and listening to this when it first airs, I hope you had an amazing Thanksgiving weekend filled with some great people surrounding you, and obviously some great food, too. Also, pumpkin pie. You gotta have pumpkin pie, with like way too much whipped cream on it. There's no other way, and I will fight people who claim otherwise. I actually just got back from a great trip out west with my husband. We went to Vancouver, British Columbia for a few days and then did an Alaskan cruise, which was incredible. If you are someone who has ever expressed interest in taking one but didn't know if it was worth it, this is me telling you that you absolutely need to do it. And do it sooner than later. The glaciers will likely never be as big as they are now in our lifetimes. So book it, plan it, do it. It was so gorgeous, and it was just absolutely wild to know that that kind of beauty exists on the same ground that I walk on every day. It looks very different than my day-to-day setting here in Ontario, so I am just obsessed with the West Coast. Maybe I'll end up there one day, who knows? Anyways, I've personally been traveling since I was young. I used to go away with my parents every year, and this was the first cruise that I've ever done, and I totally have the itch for more. So if you have any recommendations, please feel free to send me a DM on Instagram at MelDidItHerself or send me an email. It's mel@meldiditherself.ca because I want to know which ones are worth it. And if you have any questions about the Alaskan cruise, feel free to message me. I have a lot of people that were asking for details as I was sharing some photos throughout the week. It sounds like it's on a lot of your bucket lists. It was on ours, and we decided to do it before we're about to kick the bucket because if not now, then when? So, after being able to relax and rejuvenate and indulge in so much food and drink and being waited on hand and foot, I came back home so invigorated. Well, a little bit exhausted, I'm not gonna lie. Today, I need like a day to recharge, but I am invigorated and ready to serve you. And because I always want to give you guys the best tips and tricks to save you time, energy, and money on your furniture flips, today, I thought we could go through 6 products that will help your furniture makeovers go more smoothly from my trial and error tested experience. And we can choose 6 because, fun fact, 6 is my favorite and lucky number. Now, you can certainly perform a great furniture transformation without the use of any of these, so don't ever feel the need to get them. But if you ever find yourself running into some of the problems that I'll discuss, then these are some of the things that might help you out to save that time, effort, and frustration. I will be linking all of the products in this episode in the show notes, so if you're interested in checking any of them out for yourself, feel free to click through to see them in all of their glory. Okay, first up is painting pyramids. They're inexpensive, nothing too complex, but they serve their purpose and I use them constantly. Essentially, they are little plastic pyramids that you get. You buy them in a pack of like 10 maybe, and you use them to elevate your pieces off of the floor when refinishing or painting them. Elevating the piece is key because there have been times when I was newer to furniture flipping where I would just work on pieces while they were sitting on the garage floor, and this poses a couple of issues. First, if you're painting, you're more than likely going to end up with paint on the floor as you try and get right down to the very bottom of the base of the piece. Second, if you are painting and trying to get to that very bottom of the base, in addition to getting the paint on the floor, if there's any dust or dirt or anything else on the floor, chances are you're going to snag that with your paintbrush and it will end up either in the finish on your piece or back in the paint when you go to put some more product onto your brush. Either way, that means added texture and it will impact the quality and durability of your finish. And third, if you don't elevate the piece and you're sanding the piece or painting it, I guess, chances are you will end up with a bit of finish left on the bottom that you missed because you just won't be able to get your sander close enough to the ground to be able to get it all. Of course, you can use things like paint cans, or if you're lazy like me, you might be doing the foot trick where you slide your foot underneath and flex it as needed to elevate the piece off of the floor. And now, I'm no doctor, but I do know that the bones in our feet are pretty small and delicate, so I can only assume that this approach isn't highly recommended, by doctors at least. So these pyramids do the trick. They're about $15, so not a huge financial investment, but they're just handy to have. And they are a great stocking stuffer, so take note and maybe add that to your wish list if you celebrate Christmas. And if you have a furniture artist in your life, this is also a great, inexpensive, but thoughtful gift that you could grab for them for literally any occasion, and I guarantee that they will get some good use out of it. Because it's a want and not a need, it's something that you might not otherwise buy for yourself, so it's a great thing that someone can bring to you that you would use if you had, but you just don't want to fork out the extra few dollars, you know? The second product that is going to help your upcycled furniture project go much more quickly and easily is getting some sanding foam pads. These are essentially pieces of sandpaper that you stick to your electric sander that are attached to foam, so that instead of your sander blowing through and sanding edges down flat, the foam will fit the grooves and contour to the shape of the edge or the piece that you're sanding and will sand around it rather than sand it away. I cannot begin to explain just how much time and effort these have saved me over the years. They have saved countless hours of hand sanding, so my achy hands and barely hanging on their fingerprints really appreciated the opportunity to rest when I discovered these. I have a Surf Prep 3x4 electric ray sander, so I get the Surf Prep foam pads for my sander just because I'm already ordering from there. I have seen other brands offer similar foam pads, and I've also seen people use the Surf Prep foam pads on non-Surf Prep sanders. So whatever works, but I highly recommend trying them out. What I find it particularly quick and handy for is when you get those pieces that have those super ornate carvings and details and you want to paint the piece, but you know that hand sanding those details will be a total pain in order to get them scuff sanded. Foam sanding pads to the rescue. Okay, so let's talk tape. Painter's tape is great for taping off edges that you don't want to get paint on, whether it be to block off the inside of drawers or taping off hardware that you can't remove on a piece and want to protect. But have you ever tried to paint a geometric design on a piece using painter's tape? There's hacks to get a crisp line, like adding a coat of poly after you put the tape down, and a couple of other suggestions that I've come across. But let me tell you what product will save you the time and effort of having to do that. Frog tape. And that's just the name brand. No frogs were hurt in the making of the tape, from what I am assuming. Don't ask me how, don't ask me why. I don't know what they do differently, but it's always a much firmer grip to the piece than your average painter's tape, and you get an immaculately crisp line every time. 100% worth paying the extra couple bucks in my opinion. The fourth product that I want to mention won't necessarily save you any time or effort probably, but if you are already providing this, if you have a furniture painting and refinishing business, then it could potentially save you money. If nothing else, it is definitely a great, thoughtful touch to add into your repertoire. If you aren't already providing your clients with some extra paint for their painted pieces that they purchase from you, I highly recommend. In case they happen to ding the piece on the way home, or something happens to it longer term and they require a touch-up, or if maybe they wanted to either color match the shade or maybe even paint some little decor pieces in the same color to coordinate the room better. Maybe they wouldn't do that, I don't know, but I think it's a nice touch. In order to provide this, though, you want to make sure that it's in a package or container that is airtight so that it doesn't dry out, but also so that it doesn't leak. For this, I have come across two different options, both super affordable because they're from Dollarama. For anyone not in Canada, Dollarama is our local dollar store, so I'm sure you can find something similar in your area. The first thing that I found and loved for this use, which is now out of stock or maybe just not available at my local Dollarama, was little plastic sauce containers that you would normally get something like aioli or ketchup in with your takeout food. They didn't leak, they were pretty compact, and I think it came with like a pack of at least 10 or more for like $1.25. So perfect. Now, since I haven't been able to find them again since I ran out and had to go searching, I have switched to another great alternative, little plastic paint pots that you find in the art aisle of the dollar store. There's a smaller and a bigger size available. I think you get 6 or 8 of them for like $1.25 for the bigger ones, and there's probably about 12 to 16 of the smaller size in a pack for the same price. They actually hold a surprising amount of paint, so it's a great bang for your buck. I try to have both sizes on hand so that I can have the option of which one to use and to provide, and I'll fill a smaller one for smaller pieces I sell, like a side table, a shelf, or other small piece, and give the bigger ones for larger things like big dressers. The next item that is going to help make your furniture makeovers go much more smoothly and save you time and hassle is adding a hard bristle brush of some kind to your toolkit. Again, this can be something as inexpensive and straightforward as something you get from the dollar store for a couple bucks, but it is very useful to have on hand when needed. Most commonly, I like to use this for pieces that have a lot more ornate and intricate details and carvings and things like that, because the harder bristles can get in there and clean them out well, much better than if you were using a microfiber cloth or something like that. Even cheaper than a dollar store brush, another option is to use an old hard toothbrush instead, just as long as the bristles aren't yet worn down. The last product that I can attest will absolutely save you time, effort, frustration, and a workout is saran wrap, or plastic wrap of any kind. Sounds strange, but can you guess what I use it for? If you guessed for stripping paint, you would be absolutely correct. If you have ever attempted to use paint stripper and have left it for the recommended amount of time, came back to it and found that you still had to fight tooth and nail to get basically any of the finish off, and you think that's how it is supposed to go, I'm here to tell you that it can be much, much easier than that. What can happen, depending on what product you're using and what weather conditions you're working in, whether it's cooler, more humid, or perhaps in direct sunlight, which, by the way, it probably shouldn't be. This can all play a factor in whether or not A, your paint stripper completely dries while it's on your piece and it's supposed to be pulling up the finish, and B, whether or not it performs its intended function of actually stripping back the finish. What plastic wrap or saran wrap can do is to provide a barrier between the product and the air so that it locks in that moisture and lets it do its thing without risking it drying out or at least drying too quickly. I typically like to keep my paint stripper on a little longer than the recommended time as well, because I find that when I do that, it just does more of the work for me. So this is super helpful when I do that as well. Basically, all you need to do is apply the paint stripper to the piece as usual, then grab a big piece of saran wrap. I like to try and cover the piece all in one long sheet if possible, and just lay it down as flat as you can over the stripper. Then just gently pat it down to ensure that it is pushing the product into the piece and the product is evenly distributed along whatever surface you're working on. Then just let it sit for the recommended amount of time, or maybe extend it a bit if you're feeling frisky like me. And then when you're done, just carefully lift the plastic wrap off and the stripper should still be nice and moist. Sorry for saying moist. And ready to easily lift up the remaining finish. Now, keep in mind that some projects will still be more finicky than others, so even with this hack, some elbow grease may be required, but I can assure you that it will be much, much easier than it otherwise would have been. Pinky promise. And something you may not know about me, I love little motivational messages. They literally always get me fired up, and I keep a running list of ones that are especially catchy or speak to me in the Notes app on my phone. So I'm going to end every podcast episode with one of those that I've noted down over the years in hopes that you leave our time here each week feeling inspired, motivated, and ready to take on whatever comes your way that week. So this week's Mel's motivational message is, what you do not change, you choose. So if you find yourself in the middle of a furniture makeover and there is a step or a challenge that has been presented to you that is kind of taking more time or effort or energy than you think it ought to, there's probably a hack out there of a way to maybe do it more correctly. Perhaps you're not doing it right, or just a little bit of a hack on how to save some time and energy. Usually that's through purchasing something else that's going to help you to do that task, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it might be something that you already have sitting around the house and you just haven't thought to use it for that purpose. So you can look for those tricks and tips. Maybe check out my Instagram. I always try to share anything that I come across, or make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast here so you hear upcoming episodes, because I will definitely share anything I know and learn. But if you're not seeking out those solutions, if you are not looking for that change, you're choosing it. So just remember that. If you're at peace with that and at peace with the fact that whenever you do this step in your refinishing process, it's always going to go like it's going at that time. It's going to take that amount of time. It's going to take that amount of effort. Then that's fine. But if you want it to change, what you do not change, you choose. So make sure you're taking that time and effort to seek out that solution. That it might take a little bit more time up front. That's kind of an ongoing theme here, is that these things do take a little bit of time at the forefront, but it's in order to save you time down the line. And this goes for the rest of your life as well, not just in your furniture refinishing. What you do not change, you choose. So if there's anything in your life right now that is not quite meeting the mark, or you are saying, I wish it was like this, or I should be doing this, that should word. What is it that they say? You can should all over yourself. But ultimately, if you're not making that change, you are choosing that reality for yourself. So if you're eating unhealthy, but you're wanting to be losing weight, well, you're choosing that. If you're not making the change to up your steps or add a workout into your day or whatever that might be, you're choosing your current reality by not choosing to change it. So what you do not change, you choose. That goes for your relationships with your family, your friends, your partner, whatever that might be. Keep that in mind anytime that you find yourself looking at something and wishing it were different, wishing it were better, feeling like you're left unsatisfied with whatever the thing is. What you do not change, you choose. So what can you do today to change it? And if you're enjoying the podcast so far, I would super appreciate it if you would head over and at a minimum leave me a rating out of 5 stars. And if you have an extra second in your day, leave a review if you are on Apple Podcasts or on iTunes, and let the world know why you love to tune in every single week to join me on this furniture refinishing ride. It will help others to find this podcast. It makes the algorithm push it out to more, and I always love it. If this is your first episode that you're listening to, welcome. Thank you for being here, and I hope you'll tune in next week. All right, that's it for now. I appreciate your time, and I'll catch you all next week.